Ultimately, I want people leaving feel inspired, energized, engaged, and ready to get at it. So I think for some jobs and some people, it will be a threat, and there's no getting around that. There will be jobs that will disappear because of AI. That's just you're already starting to see that just now. And sometimes it's not the jobs that you necessarily think are going to disappear or change dramatically. So we can for the people that are staying within the organization and really want to accelerate their use of artificial intelligence, the way that I usually talk to them is depending on whether it's a manager or a leader in an organization or someone that's a little bit more on the ground, more operational, they're going to use AI in slightly different ways. So the way I talk about it is this idea of super collaboration, using artificial intelligence to be like that creative collaborator that you're working with to help spar on ideas, make your ideas better, make your ideas stronger, more resilient. So that can be in different ways. And you tend to find people work in two main ways. The ones that use AI well. One that we term them the cyborgs. So these are people who tend to be more technical in the work that they're doing or more tactical. So what they do is they intertwine everything that they do with artificial intelligence. They're constantly refining and molding its responses. Like a guitar player having that guitar, it becomes part of who they are. While a centaur, what they do is they're usually a manager role and they will look at all the work that has to be done on a project and says, okay, these are the things that myself or my human team will do, and these are the things that the artificial intelligence or the agentic AI will do. Now, whether you decide to be a cyborg or a centaur doesn't really matter. The point is you start to integrate these technologies into the work that you do, so you're working in a much more super collaborative way. So it really depends on the industry that you're talking about and the job title and the role and the seniority. So, for example, if I'm the other day I was doing for one of the largest semiconductor companies, and so this is very procurement, engineering oriented, manufacturing orientated. So for them, in the case of, let's say, procurement, they're looking at AI basically dealing with almost the majority of the procurement process. So it's doing prices, it's doing bidding, doing invoicing, checking invoices, etc. So it really just as a human in the final stage of the process, just to double check and maybe to put that final line of approval. If my wife is a lawyer, so when I speak to a lot of legal groups, accountancy firms, legal firms, they use AI in a slightly different way. I would say that the way that they're using it is really that kind of focusing on the lower quality tasks that they have to do and offloading some of that onto the AI. I remember the first time I showed my wife how to use some of the different AI tools, and her eyes lit up. And my wife's not particularly technical. She's a lawyer. But what she was just really enthused was the amount of time that it saved her. So she could focus on some of the higher quality work that she wanted to do. Also, the great thing about AI is, and I talk about this, how you build your virtual or imaginary masterminds to challenge your thinking and to deal with what we call confirmation biases or cognitive biases that we have. So what AI is also very, very good at when you partner and you collaborate with it is finding the weak points in your idea or your argument or your proposal, and this ultimately helps you do a better job. The biggest mistake I think organizations make at the moment is thinking it's a technology issue, where actually it's a people and a process playbooks issue. So there was a study done the other day by Boston Consulting Group, and I talk this idea in my speeches called pilot purgatory, that the majority of AI initiatives in organizations fail to deliver value for the organizations or the clients or the customers that they serve. Now, the reason for this, what Boston Consulting Group discovered, is that only 20% of the reason why these AI initiatives fail is the technology. That's the smallest part. The much bigger part, the 80%, is the people, the playbooks, the processes that they're playing in their head. So when I go and speak to organizations, whether it's to large multinational companies or smaller firms of like legal professionals or whatever the area may be, I actually focus a little bit more on the human side, a little bit more on the people side, because you have to change the perception that people have about what they can do with AI, what value it's going to bring to them. And you also have to go over something that's really important that we call the competency penalty. And I talk about this at length in my keynotes, where often what you'll see is if a woman or an older worker uses AI, they're actually judged to be less competent than their male peers. for doing exactly the same work. So we have this competence penalty, and I talk about that now. It's very simple to get over it and deal with it. But if you don't deal with these cultural issues, then really you're never going to achieve full value from using artificial intelligence. So the roles that are going to disappear first are anything that's rule-based, repetitive, routine. AI loves those jobs. So what you're starting to see just now is you're starting to see obviously a lot of customer service jobs disappear. There's a company called Klarna. They did about $14 billion in revenue last year. They replaced 700 customer service workers with one artificial intelligence, one AI agent. So because it's able to deal with many things. Now, the interesting thing here that a lot of people aren't thinking about, I speak to audiences about this because they don't really think about this at first. What this ends up doing is the people that are left, the humans that are left working in the business, doing like, say, a role like customer service, their role is actually more difficult now. Because when they used to come into work, 90% of what they were dealing with was kind of more routine, simpler work, things that they could solve pretty quickly. Only 10% was more complicated tickets that they had to solve. Now, when they come into work, 100% of what they're dealing with is the difficult stuff, the challenging tickets. This puts a higher cognitive load on those individuals. So you have to work with individuals and create and ensure that you're being supportive to them as they go through these changes in the work that they do. But I would say the jobs that will disappear really, really quickly, in fact, you're already starting to see it just now, is anything that is routine, repetitive, or any kind of rule-based work. Interestingly, if we think about healthcare, I speak to a lot of big healthcare companies. Doctors, certain types of doctors can be the ones that their work is going to disappear. Radiologists, for example, AI is very good at a lot of radiology work. Whereas a nurse, think about a job a nurse does. She has to have that empathy. She's working with that patient. She's often physically lifting that patient as well. Much more complicated than just a rules-based system. I hope audiences feel leaving inspired, energized, and also with some actionable things that they can do to implement artificial intelligence in their organizations. It's going to be different depending on the kind of audience I'm speaking to, whether it's a senior leadership group, it might be more on AI, things like AI governance, or if it's those frontline workers, and it's going to be more on actually how they implement AI at scale quickly and create those kind of projects that really help save them time. Because for me, and I think about one of my assistants on my team, he is 3 times more productive today than he was even 2 years ago because he uses AI in almost everything that he does. And for me, the benefit of that is he gets to spend more time with his family. I don't want him doing mundane, boring work. No one should be doing this stuff. That's the stuff that we want to shift off to the machine. So I don't shy away from the dangers of AI. I talk about the dangers, but ultimately I want people feel inspired, energized, engaged, and ready to get at it.